All right. So day 2 of Bart Keeler, and apparently day 1 of my microphone being
I
completely
was wondering what
disappeared.
happened there.
I don't know. I legitimately don't know. Nothing has changed in the history of this microphone setup and the history of my audio board. And apparently all hell broke loose this morning. Maybe they just didn't like me discussing Ben Olsen in Houston or something.
I can understand that. I would run away from Ben Olsen possibly. So.
And Hugo Perez was part of the discussion. So, yeah. So welcome back, Bart.
Hi there.
We're going to try and discuss the women's game this time.
Let's. How about we start with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, have you figured out your travel plans yet for the Southern Hemisphere?
Not entirely. But I definitely will say I'm considering not necessarily being in attendance for that first game against Vietnam, so that I can travel a little bit easier. But we'll see. Definitely plan to be there for the game against Netherlands and the final group game, and go from there. It's a lot of time off to have to take, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was about to say.
You know, it's.
Are you budgeting your vacation to make sure that everything is in one piece so you can go?
I don't have a whole lot of vacation time period, and I don't get rollover vacation. So that's a little unfortunate. But it'll work. Worst case scenario, I mean, I work from home. I'm a remote worker, so I'll just bring my laptop and be like, hey, I'm working. So that's the backup plan at this point.
And so, like roster wise, what are your expectations versus your hopes? Like where do they diverge down the path?
So the hopes are that a lot of the players who are injured currently will be healthy and performing well by the time that July 22nd rolls around next year. So that includes Sam Ewis, includes like Lynn Williams, includes Julie Ertz, Kristen Press, Katerina Macario. These are significant injuries that, especially in at least two of those, alter the way that the team can play. More would be like an Abby Dahlkemper. Tierna Davidson has been out with a major knee injury as well. If we can get a handful of those players back, and literally a handful, because there seems to be like a bushel of players on the U.S. women's national team who are dealing with long-term injuries. If we can get a handful of those players back, it definitely improves the way that this team can play. I think if you're looking at possibly getting Davidson back, especially, that would solidify your back line and reduce the need for Becky Sauerbrunn, who is unfortunately just at the end of her career and not able to keep up with the international game at the speed that it plays at. But those are my hopes. Where that diverts is the reality that players don't often come back from significant knee injuries within a year and be at the top of their game. Now, Katerina Macario has been working very hard, I see from her Instagram, trying to get back into the form that she was in, which was stellar form. I mean, it was Champions League winning form. She's also a lot younger than a woman like Julie Ertz, who not only had to go through, just the general life of giving birth and being pregnant, but that was coming off of also being very injured for a very long time. Again, you see with Kristen Press, that was a significant knee injury. That's an ACL as well. That who knows how she comes back. We don't know how these things will play out because, we just, unfortunately, that's how injuries work. It's not like we haven't seen that with Atlanta United here, that you just don't know how someone's going to be or how long it'll take for them to recover from an injury. Spoiler alert, that's what we're concerned about with Miles Robinson and Brad Guzan next year. The fortunate thing is most of these injuries occurred more than a year out from the World Cup. So I'm very hopeful that we will get a good chunk of those injured players back. But I'm not confident Julie Ertz returns to playing international level soccer ever again. I think she is going to be perfectly content with her life where it is now, as someone who has accomplished so much in the women's game. And I mean, she's still a 2-time world champion. She can retire and be just fine with that. But I do think like Sam Ewis, Katarina Macario are important for the attack and the midfield. Tiana Davidson and Abby Dahlkemper would be great upgrades on the back line to just give some experience and support to Cook and Gurma. And then you're looking at hopefully the return of Katarina Macario to be leading the line, or at least a backup to Alex Morgan, and giving you more versatility in the way you play.
So where does let's assume you're right with Julie Ertz. Where does she end up in the pantheon of U.S. women's soccer players? Like where on that pedestal, the multi-tiered pedestal, does she end up?
I don't think she's on the Wambach, Ham, Akers level, but I think she'd be in that, and for different reasons, that Foudy, Box, just longtime stalwarts who made that team better because they were so good at doing their job well. That even might be underselling Julie Ertz a little bit, but she was, I'm not joking when I say I think she might be one of the best defensive midfielders to ever play the game of soccer. Her ability, her being brought up as a center back helps her with her defensive reading of the game from a defensive midfielder position. But her athleticism, her speed, her quickness to close down we're seeing it right now. And this is the biggest issue I do have with Vlatko is Andy Sullivan is not Julie Ertz because no one is Julie Ertz. And he's expecting Andy Sullivan to perform like Julie Ertz would have performed in a kind of single pivot, lone defensive midfielder role. And no one can do that. You just can't, because Julie Ertz was the best combination of speed, athleticism, intelligence, and then when she got the ball, skill to turn the ball upfield and launch attacks. Add to that her prowess on attacking set pieces. That little ponytail flick that she could do was unbeatable and unguardable because she just could get to that spot quicker than a lot of people. She's in that tier 2 for me. If she does end up calling it quits, it'll be like, I think that Shannon Box, Julie Foudy mold of like really good player, not going to ever be seen as the greatest of her generation because she didn't score the way that some of those players did, but she was vital to the way that 15 and 19, she was a big reason why we won World Cups in those years.
Oh yeah, I think she extended that window through 19. Like, cause
absolutely.
I was very vocal in, I did not think they had a blue chance in hell at winning the cup in 19. I thought that just the European clubs were better. And, her performance in 19 helped drag, and it's not just her, but her performance in 19 helped drag them through that.
Sorry, I have to respond to a work message.
No worries. So when you have finished responding, there's a question to the floor for you.
And I think that's again what we're seeing now is Julie Ertz allowed you to have a Megan Rapinoe on the field who wasn't necessarily concerned with defense all that much. It allowed you to have Horan and Lavelle not worry about defensive responsibilities as much, and focus just on getting into great attacking spaces. I mean, obviously, I think Horan and Lavelle are decent defenders. I'm not saying that, but it just allowed your attacking 5 to have more freedom up front. And I don't think we've adjusted well to that. That's probably my biggest criticism of Vlatko right now is from a defensive standpoint, we have not adjusted to not having Julie Ertz right now. And to your point, Jarrett, those European clubs, you saw the last World Cup. We won, but you still had England, Netherlands, France.
Wasn't necessarily convincing.
Yeah. You still had France doing well. Germany was in a down year, and now look where they are now. I want people to understand that it's God, this sounds so. If we don't win the 2023 World Cup, the sky is not falling. That would have been I'm telling you, that would have be 3 World Cup titles in a row, and would have been 4 World Cup finals in a row. And just when you think about the longevity of our success, 91 we win, 95 we're third, 99 we win, 2003 we're third, 2007 we still finished third, our worst World Cup performance ever that we can remember, still finished third. 2011 we finished second, 2015 and 19 we win it.
You're describing an entire generation, by the way. Like and I don't mean like you're talking about legitimately an entire generation of 4 World Cups of 16 years. That's a playing career.
Yes, that's
an entire generation of success.
Yes, and that's where we're seeing right now. Legitimately, the issue is that generation, the Alex Morgan and older generation, who have been part of the 2011 or 2011, 15, and 19 cycles. They're on the wrong side of 30. They're getting banged up. They're not able to perform quite at the same level that we would like for them to, while also seeing the fruits of a lot of the investment in the women's game from the European side. I mean, the reason England is so good right now is because they've been pumping money into the women's game in England for a good decade, right? If not more, when it comes to just development. You have to applaud clubs like Arsenal, clubs like Chelsea, who have really wanted to develop women's teams. And even there's others at like lower levels. Like, I mean, you still look at like a Reading, who, though they're never going to be at the same level as Arsenal or Chelsea, they've been having women's professional teams for a very long time. And that's great. Like, I do not see that as a negative, because ultimately that's going to be better for women's football internationally. Would I like to see more investment or a different type of investment from the U.S. Soccer Federation into women's soccer here? Yeah, I think that we do need to reevaluate how we develop our players here. But this is just like, these are the existential issues that are facing us, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's a negative. It's just not everything is as cut and dry as, well, we have Alex Morgan, she's going to score goals, or we have Megan Rapinoe, she has fun hair and she's good. There's a lot more that goes into winning a soccer game than just, oh, well, we believe we can win. Because to be quite honest, that's kind of what brought us through the 2019 World Cup as well. It was just an undying belief that we're going to win. We can rag on the coach all we want. That's fine. But at the end of the day, players win games, and maybe we don't have the best collection of players right now, but that doesn't mean that we're not still the best women's program in the world because of one down cycle. One. And I'll remind you that 2003 and 2007 were down years, and look what we got after that.
Yeah, that arrogance in 2019 was life-changingly hilarious, I'm not going to lie. So Bert asked about, how worried are you about the tactical deficiencies compared to the top European teams? I know we kind of touched on that, but if you wanted to give you an opportunity to expand on it if you wanted to.
I will still go down to the fact that I think players win games. I think that the tactical deficiencies right now do come from the fact that we were so used to doing something in a certain way and it's not working. I think that Vlatko needs to adjust the way he's setting up his team. But I'll also say that you can't scream for us to play good teams to test ourselves. Scream that we haven't tested ourselves, so we don't really know how good we are. And then when we test ourselves and go, oh crap, maybe we're not that good, use this as well, see, we're just shit. And it's like, no, like, this was the point of playing England and Spain. This is the point of playing Germany. Now, as I have said multiple times, if things don't improve next month against Germany, then yes, we can start really having those conversations about Vlatko. But at the end of the day, you can look at the 2021 Olympics and blame Vlatko for a lot of things. I think his roster selection was poor. I also, think that the way that the team played was poor. But is that on the coach or is that on the players? Because for so long, I've been told that the players have this incredible mentality and they're so good at getting together and winning. And that 2021 team was pretty much consistent with what we saw in 2019, and they couldn't get it done. So, I do think that we need to have a shift toward a better tactical knowledge of the game. But Vlatko can't change that alone, But he does have some adjustments to make. I think we're too reliant on crosses and too reliant on a lone defensive midfielder. And those are two changes that you can easily make. But I also look at, Sophia Smith and Mal Pugh, who tend to be ISO players. They'd be really good in the modern NBA. Is that we're going to be good at international women's soccer? I don't know.
A couple of other points from David. Let me throw a couple at you. Sullivan and Horan together are his issue, and Byrne says he would play Ashley Sanchez over Rose Lavelle.
I don't know if I would play Ashley Sanchez over Rose. I would play Ashley Sanchez over Lindsey Horan.
So if you had the 11 in a perfect world, everybody's healthy, what is your starting 11?
Everyone's healthy? Ooh, that's tough.
That's why I posed the question, sir.
Yeesh. Okay, backline should be a little bit easier. I'm going to put Alexander in goal. You have Huerta on the right. Cook and Davidson in the middle. And right now, Emily Fox has been the only good left back that I've seen, and that includes Crystal Dunn. We'll put Crystal Dunn on the left side. We'll put Emily Fox on the left side. Midfield will be Sullivan, Sanchez, Lavelle. But I think this is where I don't know, because I think if Sam Mewis is healthy, that changes things a lot. I could see Sullivan, Mewis, Lavelle as a much better midfield and a much more balanced midfield. So I just don't know. When you say healthy, that means they can run. Does that mean they're at the level they were at? That's you know what? No, we'll put Sullivan, Mewis, Lavelle. I think that's our best midfield if everyone's at healthy and at their best. Front three, I still think Alex Morgan is your starting striker. I love Katarina Macario, but I think she's a little bit behind Morgan in the way we want to play. If she's healthy, Kristen Press on the left, Mal Pugh on the right. I think that would be a very fluid and dynamic front three that could work well with the midfield that I laid out.
All right, Rack is in this morning. Man, has Horan fallen that far?
No, she won a damn Champions League last May. It's about how does she fit in this midfield.
Yeah, that was his follow up. Is it a matter of form or fit?
It's a matter of fit, and it's a little bit a matter of form. I think that she hasn't been as good as she has been for us, but I think it has more to do with the way that she fits in the system. Again, she tends to be a little positionally rogue,
loose.
Yeah. So having Julie Ertz behind her makes that easy, but yeah, no, Lindsey Horan is still a very good soccer player.
I'm just having these images in my head of like the old U.S. men's national team where it was Michael Bradley and Jermaine Jones, and Jermaine Jones would just go on a walkabout for 70 minutes, just chasing the game like a dog chasing a car.
Yeah.
And Michael Bradley's just sitting there like, well, guess this is a single pivot now.
And that's one of the reasons why we weren't as successful as we could have been, because Michael Bradley does not belong in a single pivot midfield.
No, but Jermaine Jones had to get his steps in.
Yeah, he had to get that fitness watch. You needed to get it in.
Yeah. God bless him.
Byrne, that's exactly the point. It works. She works well at Lyon because she has Henri right next to her, who is very similar to the way Ertz plays. So yeah, exactly. Like, she works well at Lyon because and that's a club situation where you said, hey, Lindsey Horan is a very good soccer player. Let's find, granted, they've had Henri, but let's make sure she's paired with someone who works well with her. We don't have that luxury at the U.S. women's national team level because we don't have a Julie Ertz or Amanadine Henri. Those do not grow on trees.
Yeah,
couple of points.
That's always my favorite conversation. We're like, just replace the legendary player who's. It's like Miguel Almiron here. Like, just get another Miguel Almiron. Okay, You find one for me.
Yeah.
Find me a unicorn.
Yeah,
Exactly.
unicorns are weird. They're tough to replace, y'all. That's why they don't just make Iniestas on trees.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, they don't make strikers on trees. Ask Greg Berhalter right now.
Jesus.
A couple of notes on the U17s before we get into the other groups and groups
Yeah.
of death. Burn. On a positive note, saw the U17s women's team played a lot more with the ball than just hit it over the top like earlier editions. Great progress and will help in the long run.
Yeah, despite what apparently women's soccer Twitter thought that losing to Nigeria in a penalty kick shootout was like this sign that the world is ending and we're terrible at soccer, we played really good. Like, we played really good soccer throughout that tournament. The Nigeria game was one where they got a very lucky penalty kick. I'm not saying it wasn't a penalty kick. That's not my point. They got very lucky that a very innocuous foul called literally on the first blade of grass that was painted with white, which means it's inside the penalty area, was called via VAR on a dubious angle. Nigeria only converted penalty kicks the entire day, and they were better at goal line clearances than we were. And I'll be damned if people running with this narrative that somehow that means that bad things for us. One, we've never won a U17 World Cup. Like, that, youth World Cups do not. Being at a youth World Cup is good. Making it out of the group stage is good, but like actually winning it is a crapshoot. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But that U17 team played very well. Our center backs, actually, I forget their names off the top of my head, but our center back pairing throughout the tournament looked very strong. They were good on the ball, positionally sound, and very good at recovering balls throughout the tournament. And look, youth World Cups are weird. I thought that they were they played very good soccer. And I to me, that was a positive. Also, Alyssa Thompson wasn't there, who got her call up in October for the women's national team. She's 17. We look at the U20 World Cup. We didn't have Trini Rodman either. So it's not like we're sending our best players there. I mean, the youth World Cups are always who are the best players that we can get to come to this tournament.
This will be my final one. Is I have to rejoin the real world in a minute. But I wanted to get your opinion on teams to watch outside of the U.S. when this World Cup hits, and we can talk about this again when we get close to it, because things change. But aside from the U.S., if someone came to you and was like, "Hey, I'm going to watch this Women's World Cup. If I'm going to clear my schedule to watch another team other than the U.S., who would it be?"
So the first one I would say is England, because obviously they're the reigning European champions. They are, and this is where the conversation of the U.S.'s prolonged success versus the current success of England. England has been a pretty decent women's national team for 3-4 cycles now. Kelly Smith is maybe my all-time favorite women's soccer player, and they're very good right now. Very good. I would try. I personally am going to be trying to go watch them in person when I'm there. So that would be the one that I would say is definitely go try to watch England. I think the next thing I would say is look at groups, maybe not necessarily teams, because there's a lot of good teams right now. Like, you can still look at France, Germany, Netherlands, they're still good. But Group B for me is going to be a lot of fun. Australia, Canada are very similar teams who are both trying to figure out how they fit into the modern women's soccer world. And we've got Nigeria and Ireland, who kind of similarly, Nigeria has been always around, never that good. That would be an interesting one. So Group B would be very interesting. And then the other one I would say is Group G with Sweden, Argentina, and Italy. Italy has been kind of hit or miss in the women's game. Argentina is trying to become the next best team in South America. And then you've got Sweden, who's just always been around, I think is the best way I can say it. Sweden has, I mean, they've finally get, they've got bronze medals, they've got silver medals. Can this be the year that they get win a World Cup? That would be an interesting storyline for me. And then if you want one other team that you're like, yeah, I got to watch, it would be Germany, because I think they're back to being good again. And Germany was incredibly good from 2003 to 2011. For those, I mean, this is a pulling out maybe a little bit of an old reference, but if you remember the 2002 WUSA Founders Cup final, Birgit Prinz bagged 2 goals to win for the Carolina Courage, and they've been good ever since. So I think they're kind of back to that level of with Alexander Pop being very, very good. No, not Spain, Burn. Sorry. I don't trust teams that have never won a knockout tournament, a knockout game of any tournament. I just don't. Sorry. Maybe that's the thing to watch. Can Spain actually win a knockout round game? Costa Rica's going to beat them.
Oh wow! There's your early.
I think that's going to happen, but I'm rooting for that to happen.
Team Chaos, we're a fan. So, Jarrett, you're back with us tomorrow?
Yeah, theoretically.
All right. So we like theories. So we will see you tomorrow, my friend.
Sounds good.
And thank you for carrying the first hour.
Hi, Jarrett.
Because of whatever's going
on
with my friggin' microphone. Craziness. All right. So you realize, of course, you're going to have to take your audio equipment with you.
Yeah.
On this trip.
I'll have to figure out something. Yeah.
So that way you can actually report
and
be on the show in the morning, and we can have these updates.
That 14-hour time difference.
No, it's math. So it's
15 actually, because I did the math yesterday, and I did it with 14, and then I realized that because we have daylight savings time, it's actually 15 during that time. So we are 15 hours or 13.
So is it 15 or 13?
13.
Okay.
So 13.
That's not
there we
bad.
go. 13 hours difference.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Rich Ransom has a vote in for France as a team to keep an eye on.
We've been watching them for years. They ain't done nothing.
All right. So 13. So if you're on the show right at 9 o'clock, that's 10 o'clock at night. That's not too bad.
Maybe. That sounds right.
Yeah. So 13 hours. Okay. That's not.
All I know is we play the kickoff time listed on the FIFA website. For our first game is 1 p.m. local, 1300.
Okay.
And we will actually be watching it at 9 p.m. here in Atlanta. So I don't know how that works. I don't do math. I don't do time zones. I don't know, John.
Man,
I don't know.
I don't either.
Because you're going backwards, right? You're going backwards.
Yeah.
So it's not, yeah. So you're going, yeah. So 12 hours.
Right.
15, I don't know.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot of really good groups. What is the group of death in your mind?
Group B. Group B is the group of death. Australia and Canada, probably you would say are favorites to get out of that group. I think that's a very fair statement, but Nigeria is still a very good team. We saw them in September play pretty well against the US. Randy Waldrum is trying to get that program up to where it should be, which is the class of Africa. And I think he's on the right track for that. And then Ireland is just kind of this like sneaky, who knows what they are. I don't expect much of them, but I think Group B is really the group of death. The other one could be Group A with New Zealand, Norway, and Switzerland. Norway has been weirdly just not good the past couple of tournaments they've played in, which is a weird thing for the team that was so good in the early editions of this tournament. I mean, let's see, 2005 they won it. I want to say they're the runners up in 91. I don't remember that far back. I think that's right. Yeah, 95 they won it. 2003 they were in this. I think we beat them in the semifinal or the third place game, or Germany beat them in the final. One of the two. They've been very good, and they have one of the best players in the world in Ada Hegerberg, and they just haven't been able to find. I mean, granted, she hasn't played consistently for them, but Norway hasn't been able to find that top end performances as of late. But Group A is also very just interesting because when you have New Zealand as your host country who hasn't really performed well at a World Cup, that leaves room for teams like Norway and Switzerland to get through.
What first timer or what? Give me an underdog. Give me an underdog.
First timer or underdog?
Both. Haha.
Okay. So my underdog, I'm not joking when I say this. My underdog is Costa Rica.
Okay.
They're in Group C with Spain, Zambia, and Japan. Zambia, good story there. I think they're a first timer. That would be fun to watch. But Costa Rica, on their day, I could see them beating Japan. I think they're better than Zambia. I don't think they're better than Spain, but that's an interesting team to watch. Costa Rica has established themselves as the third best team in CONCACAF. I think I would like to see how they can perform in this group, because I think this group matches up well for them. There's not Zambia maybe is a little bit of the more athletically gifted group, but Japan and Spain match up well with Costa Rica in terms of playing style and the way they want the game to go.
Okay, that's your underdog. What about your first timer?
I think South Africa is the first timer, if I'm correct. And I think South Africa is just fun. They won the Africa Women's Cup of Nations. That's an interesting one to look at, right? See if they can somehow capture that tournament magic again next summer. Okay. There's really not a whole lot of first timer. Vietnam is in our group. That's a first timer. That's cool. But not a lot of the other ones are really going to be that impactful, I don't think. It's just they're first timers.
All right, one last question from Byrne before my last question for you. Do you think more young American women players will go to Europe, and will that exposure to different playing styles improve the WNT? He says yes and yes. He thinks Rodman, Smith, Girma, etc. will end up playing for top clubs in Europe.
So I would like for our players to go to Europe. I think that overall there is better soccer played in the European leagues right now. I still think the women's NWSL, the NWSL is still probably, in my opinion, the best league in the world, because top to bottom there are more better teams, right? Maybe the Women's Super League in England is better. I think there are some better top end clubs, but we've seen that the NWSL clubs perform well against these European teams. I would like to see them go to France or England. I don't want them to go to teams like Barcelona or Juventus or teams like that in those leagues that are not very competitive.
And Barca would have to actually pay their people and have the money to do it, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, I think that France or England would be great landing spots. I think Rodman would do well in the Women's Super League. I think there are teams that would fit her style, which is a very direct attacking style, right? She loves to get on the ball and go at players. I think that would be good, but it would also teach her, like, hey, I have to do this and I have to do this, and be a little bit more nuanced with the way she finishes out her attacking phases. I'm interested to see what the fallout from the Yates report is when it comes to NWSL players. We were kind of looking for this when a couple years ago, when US Soccer stopped subsidizing NWSL, and did not really make a requirement that players on the US Women's National Team play for NWSL. And it wasn't really a requirement, but it was like, it was how they ended up paying these players the wages they were deserved. So I think we're still wondering if that will change. Obviously, we have Varane and Macario, who are playing in France, both on the same team for Lyon. We've seen Lavelle, Dahlkemper go to, even Press and Tobin Heath go to England recently. I would like to see some of them find their way over to Europe and just learn a little bit more nuanced soccer. I think the NWSL is very consistent with the way that they play, but that's not exactly the best way to play when you're the most talented team in the world.
So my last question for you this go round, and obviously
Girma at Arsenal, yes. Sorry, Byrne. I would love to see Girma at Arsenal to replace Kim Little in that role. Yes, absolutely. Put her next to Leah Williamson. Love that idea.
And then Rodman at Chelsea replacing Sam Kerr eventually.
If Kerr leaves Chelsea, yeah, I think Rodman, or I still think Smith has a lot to offer to a team like that. Rodman's obviously more of a winger. Same with Smith. They both can play in centrally, and so that would be interesting. That's a good shout, Vern.
Who's the mug this morning? I forgot to ask.
Oh, it just says "Make It Happen."
Okay,
It's a big cup of coffee, and I needed it this morning for
you're definitely making it happen. My last question for you is, how long did you have to think about making your itinerary and making this trip happen? Was it an absolute no-brainer? Like the second that it popped up, you're like, yep, I'm going?
Well, honestly, when the draw came out and, we're playing all 3 matches on the North Island of New Zealand, I thought this is perfect because I can, what we did in France in 2019 and what we've done in others, 2015 was a little bit different with Canada, but in 2019, we kind of had one big apartment that we rented out, or house that we rented out in Paris, and just went from there. And we can do that in New Zealand, where we just get a house in Auckland, rent it out for as many people as we can fit, and then that allows us to have a home base where we can put our big luggage there.
Yeah.
And then I can go to a game on the South Island of New Zealand, or I can go over to Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane. I have a certain cities, like I definitely want to go to Sydney, definitely want to go to Melbourne, definitely want to go to Brisbane. I wanted to go to Perth to see the new stadium out there, but that was going to be far anyway. I don't think that's going to happen. But there are a couple
like
of
going from Atlanta to LA.
I don't think I want to do that necessarily. But I do want to go to Dunedin on the South Island, because that's a domed stadium that they're actually using. It's a covered stadium. I want to go to see that. And I definitely want to go to see Sydney and Melbourne, because you're there, you got to. But it allows me to it should allow us to have a central location where we can plop our stuff down and then head out as we want. And really, it's more about which matchups do you want to see, right? Like, definitely want to go see Jamaica play. I think that would just be fun. But I also want to go to that England-Denmark game. I think that would be a very interesting matchup. And it just, it's a matter of, does it fit with our schedule and their schedule. Would like to go see, again, if I'm staying in New Zealand, I'll probably try to go to a New Zealand game, because cool to see the home country. I did that in 2019, saw France play. That was really cool. But yeah, the travel schedule actually favors the U.S. very well. I mean, we play Auckland, Wellington, Auckland. Again, all 3 games on the North Island. But that having 2 games bookended at Auckland should help. If you win, you're in Sydney for the round of 16. If you lose, you're in Melbourne, but then you're back on the island if you win either of those games. So the travel schedule does set up nicely for the U.S. and it'll be nice to have be able to have their home base, their training campgrounds close to where they'll be playing most of their games. I think that it's very nice for the U.S. that they got the schedule they did. And I think the draw is really favorable. We can actually talk about the draw a little bit, but sure. Vietnam, I think we'll see a repeat of what we saw with Thailand back in 2019. I don't know if it'll quite be 13, but it'll be a rout. Yeah. We could see Thailand again. I don't think the Netherlands is at the same level they've been for a while. That 2019 team was really good, and they haven't quite lived up to that since. They're still a good team, but I see them similar to the way that we've had to play Sweden in our group a couple of times, where it's get what you can out of that game and then go beat the crap out of the other 2 teams. I'm expecting Portugal to come through that playoff, which we saw them last summer. And they were a really good defensive team, but they didn't offer anything going forward. We saw them right before the Olympics, I want to say. Yeah, that was 2011 or 2021. That was right before the Olympics. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they've improved. I don't think they've improved that much at all. So I think the draw is very favorable, and you add the fact that we're not traveling too much, very favorable, and the fact that FIFA has realized that the U.S. TV market is one to play into, because you saw what they did for the World Cup in November, making sure we had the same TV time every time. They did similarly with this. Now, obviously, the last match day we didn't get that, but 9 p.m. Eastern starts. And 3 a.m. is early, but that's 3 a.m. is not the worst half. It'll be fine, And for West Coast time, that's perfect. 6 a.m. starts and a midnight, or 6 p.m. starts and a midnight start. Yeah. FIFA knows what they're doing now, I think, and it's nice that they waited to release the times, because in the past they've just scheduled the tournament and there you go. They thought about it this time and gave us some preferential treatment, which is very clear we deserve. I mean, props to the U.S. fans. We watched the game on television.
I hope that you realize that you have a golden ticket here for the show.
Yeah.
So whenever you want to parachute in, you may. That is the idea of the golden ticket. So anytime that you want to talk about stuff, seriously, just like whatever, just like, hey, dude, knock on the door and then come parachuting in. So because we have to see what your mugs are on a different basis.
I know. Again, I'll have a nice collection of different mugs. So yeah. Yeah, Byrne, I'm with you. I don't think that Portugal is there yet, but you know, they're still a team that has some talent, and I think if you get the right manager helping them along, they should be okay. But yeah, the women's game in Europe is surpassing the women's game here, and to get on this diatribe again, the problem is not Vlatko.
Yeah.
The problem is U.S. soccer and the United States soccer system developing players well enough. You know, you have in Europe an established soccer infrastructure that for the longest time did not make space for women, and that was the issue. The problem for the U.S. now is they're creating space, they're moving over they're embracing the women's game, and they have academy systems, professional clubs, coaching and referee certifications, all this infrastructure that they can copy and paste to the women's game because there's no difference. Yeah. There's no difference in developing no real difference between developing a good men's and a good women's player, right? You still need the technical development at a young age, add the physical development as they grow older. We know these things. In the US, unfortunately, we're still in a system that gears female players especially to play in college. And then at the college level, a lot of them develop, and then we see them in NWSL.
Right.
What we need to have is NWSL, and again, they're only in year 10. Think about when MLS started actually having academies. It was not year 10. Spoiler alert. Yeah. It was maybe year 15 at best. I'm trying to think when like some of these academies started actually operating. Maybe like most of them though, Philly and Red Bulls and Philly, maybe in the 2012 to 15 range is when they started really developing an academy, and that was a brand new academy,
right?
You know, so we're seeing that a little bit with Louisville, with Kansas City, of thinking about an academy first structure of the club. You know, unfortunately, we saw that with Utah, and obviously Deloy is not a nice person, but I'm hoping that can be resurrected with I can't remember his name, but the new owner out there in Utah who has said he wants to bring back the Utah women's team, and I think that's in the plans for NWSL soon. You know, I think that's the step that NWSL and US Soccer needs to take is how do we get professional academies to develop girls for the professional game, not for the college game, for the professional game. Now, you're going to get a lot of girls who are going to end up going to college for that. Look at Atlanta United. I mean, the amount of players that we turn out from Atlanta United's academy to the college level is very high, and that's just because you're developing good players. That's the goal, right? If the bare minimum is most of your players go to college, that's fine. What you're trying to get is that top 2% that end up going to some sort of a professional club.
Right.
And so I think that's the next step right now for the women's game in the United States is we're still developing really good players. We're still developing players who are physically gifted, who are good at a lot of aspects of the game, but I will say that our technical and tactical IQ could be higher. And that comes from professionally run academies, not local soccer clubs.
Right.
Trying to get kids to go to college because that's how they show their improvement.
Yeah. Plus the revenue that they generate. We have kept you for an actual first.
Again, there are a lot of like theoretical and philosophical questions about like I don't think you can. I see this on Twitter all the time. Is we talk about the game in front of us when it comes to the U.S. Women's National Team, and not the theoretical issues that this team is facing.
Yeah.
So.
But the thing is, and one of the things that we have always tried to do here is let these issues have that space, because we have the space. And when you can have a long form theoretical discussion, that's what this is here for. I mean, sadly, when we spent an hour and 40 minutes on the Yates report, that was because you needed to spend an hour and 40 minutes on the Yates report.
Yeah, and the problem is that we're gonna have, like, the Yates report highlights all the bad things within it, within this women's soccer, within youth sports as a whole. You know, and as I've said, this is a turning point for women's soccer in this country to say this was bad. How do we build a new future?
Right.
And Rich, to your point, you know, NWSL academies plus a growing USL women's league, that's exactly more what we're talking about, right? How many? Don't get me started on ECNL, SECL, and NPL.
Rich, of course, it would be Rich to get it started.
But I'm not going to go down that road.
No, because look, you've already spent an extra. You've already spent your first period of. You've already done your first period of extra time. Unless you are, I don't want you to get in trouble with your real job.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is there's an opportunity still for this game and this country and this federation to realize the flaws it had, correct them, and build a new future. And as we develop a true second division, that'll help, because that'll just bring more professional soccer clubs across the country, and that's what we need. We can't have 12 professional teams and that's it.
Yeah,
for a country this large. You know,
absolutely not.
Hey, your mic works.
I know, strange.
Everyone clap for John. He got his mic to work.
Well, I think what it may be is when Jarrett comes on and he's in a wireless setting.
Okay.
That interference somehow might actually be the problem. But as I've told you, I mean, we have the space here, and that's why we want to discuss things journalistically. We want to discuss things philosophically. We want to have the space so we can be both journalistic and hopefully present issues with all of their tentacles so folks understand things in 3 dimensions. It's not just something with this. One of the things we've never wanted to be was a hot takey bunch.
Yeah, there's plenty of hot takes you can have.
But that's easy. You're not addressing the problems, you're not attacking the problems, you're not offering solutions, and you're not covering it journalistically.
Right.
Because we have the space, that's why we do things the way that we do here. It's, you know, to just sit there and mouth off and sit there and go, you know, hot take. No. That's not what we do, and we've never wanted to do that kind of stuff. Yes, I know I can come in with a one-liner and it's really easy to sit there and do a jab, but at the same time, when there's an element to discussing something and deep diving into something, that's why we do what we do.
Exactly. And that's, again, when we're talking about soccer in this country, nothing is what it is on the face, because there's so many things that come behind it. I mean, it is what it is. But I do need to get out of here, but I appreciate letting me come and talk about all these important topics that need to be talked about. Today is 1 month from the USA-England match. I'd hope that you join me at Wild Leap Atlanta from 12 till whenever we decide to not be there.
Exactly.
For the USA-England watch party, we'll have special craft small batch beers from Wild Leap. They'll have special cocktails and slushies. So I've been told there'll be red, white, and blue themed slushies. They're alcoholic slushies, not kid slushies. Some appearances from some former Atlanta United players. I've heard a guy named John Nelson might be there.
Very early. Yeah. Well, but like I said, I can be there like really early at kickoff because that's playoffs for high school football. So it's like I can multitask and and just buzz past, sit there and do the imitation palatial wave and go, y'all have fun, y'all have mine. I got to go to work. So it's like 2 places in one day.
Yeah, unfortunately, you have to work Black Friday. But if you're not working Black Friday, if you have friends or family coming into town, bring them as well. We do ask that you pre-register, just because we need to make sure we keep track of the
numbers.
the numbers that we're going to hopefully have there, we're not worried about like necessarily capacity, but we just need to make sure we know who's coming.
Yeah.
So, would love to have you all there. Obviously, it'll be a big soccer party. We'll have the Atlanta United SGs there. We'll have Atlanta United will be, like I said, some former players will be there. All these things will be fun. Hope you can make it. And again, we'll have parties every World Cup match as well. But that's the big one. That's the Black Friday matchup between USA England, the bitter battle where we throw out the tea and tell them that it's terrible. We're gonna have a tea party of our own, except I think we'll be throwing beer, not tea.
Well, you don't want to, but you don't want to you don't want to just sit there and throw that stuff away because of the consumption that you could have. I mean, unless
have you been in the supporters section, John? We don't give a damn about that.
Just throw it up into the air. I figured
just
maybe
throw it.
Okay, all right. Bart Keeler, Soccer for US Pod, Bartimus Prime 19 on the Twitters. Once again, you have a golden ticket here. So if there's anything that pops up in your brain that will not get you in trouble with your real world job, just
I just work late when I come on here. That's what happens.
There you go. All right. Well, get back to the real world, and we will catch up with you soon, my friend.
Thanks, John.